Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Encircle Contents Bootcamp. I'm Kash Mirza, Senior Product Manager here for Contents. And I'll be honest, I definitely spend a lot of time thinking about how to help make contents faster and less painful for the teams doing it. So you could consider this kind of my favorite day of the year. Contents is very near and dear to Encircle, since that's where we started about 14 years ago. And it brings us a lot of joy to be part of the contents community and bring some longtime professionals and industry experts together to share their knowledge and expertise. So, taking a look at what we have for today, we have about 3 hours, 5 speakers, and a lot of ground to cover. Looking at the agenda here, this is what we have just kind of at a high level in terms of the kind of action-packed topics for today. And before we get into it, we're going to just launch a couple of polls. Please feel free to take your time answering some of these questions. It always helps us to just get a quick and easy idea on who's with us today and how your day-to-day operations are. So thank you for taking the time to answer those questions. Awesome. So as that poll is being completed, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker is Brad Sample, Managing Partner of Action Contents. Brad and his team are all about bringing structure, clarity, and reassurance to people going through some hard moments in their lives. He leads operational excellence in the insurance restoration space. So think contents handling, inventory documentation, packouts, storage, non-restorable eval, and claim support for not just carriers, but adjusters and restoration partners all across British Columbia. His team runs 2 facilities, which have over 40,000 square feet combined, and handles thousands of claims a year, all of which is built on solid systems and clear communication. Brad is opening us up with the big picture, how contents has grown from the weird cousin of restoration to its own discipline, and what it actually takes to operate at a high level today. Brad, please take it away.
Morning, everyone. Thanks, Cash. Thanks, the Encircle team, for having me on today. So, where do we start? Has contents really changed over the last 10 years? I don't think so. I don't think I don't think it's changed too much at all, really. We still have a pack out, inventory, cleaning, storage, and pack back. I think what's changed is people's expectations. I'm not sure about anyone else on this call, but I definitely feel that expectations have put more pressure on the contents portion of claims. And yeah, there's just a lot more pressure around handling people's contents. How have the expectations changed, you ask? I think modern day society, I'm going to put it out there, I'm going to blame companies like Amazon, Uber, DoorDash. We all have them, we all use them regularly. They've really conditioned consumer expectations around having real-time updates, consistently knowing your package is on the way, your meal delivery is on the way. Um, that's really shaped the expectations for consumers in terms of what they expect when handling contents claims. So, in saying that, where's the expectation gap? I think the role has shifted more from moving contents to managing confidence. The role is largely operational. We move people's belongings, we store people's belongings, we return belongings. That's still really important. But I feel today the communication and documentation probably plays a secondary role to the reassurance and the confidence building we can provide to homeowners, during their time of need. I believe communication really is the new currency because it buys confidence with your clients, with your subtrades, with your carriers. If we want to have successful claims, we need to stop looking at communication just as a administrative task. And, we provide rudimentary updates to a client and start looking at it a way that we can build confidence right from the start of the claim. I've got the confidence curve here. So we touch on this quite a lot at Action Contents. Every claim starts out with a high level of confidence. Things are going to go well. Slowly, as we move through the claim, as you can see here, the black dotted line, silence can be deafening. The lack of communication slowly erodes the confidence the homeowner has in the claim going well. Contrary to the old saying, no news is good news, silence normally has the opposite effect when managing homeowner expectations. If you hear nothing, they're going to essentially assume that there's some issues with the claim and there's some problems, right? That's why proactive communication really matters. Communication doesn't always change the claim itself, but it absolutely changes the way the claim is experienced for all parties. All right, guys, if we can just go back to the claim volatility. In my experience, some claims become difficult long before anything's gone wrong. Um, Sometimes I'll sit there scratching my head. We'll have a claim that looks very simple on paper. It's a standard contents pack out. But we'll look to wrap up the claim, and somehow we've spent a disproportionate amount of time and energy um, working through, some challenging issues on the claim. More than likely, this has come down to a communication breakdown, right? So if we can mitigate that communication from the start of the claim and make sure it's consistent the whole way through the claim, less likely those simple claims on paper will become large scale problems and energy zapping for your teams. So we've been experimenting here at Action with, I guess we're looking at creating. We've been working with the guys at Encircle. We've started to put together some automations. I'm not going to go down the AI rabbit hole, but essentially we're looking to provide milestone updates and feedbacks to the client regarding their contents. It's more about the principle than the number of milestones that we're updating them. Some of these milestones may seem redundant on our end, but essentially this is providing confidence and reassurance to homeowners at definitely a difficult time in their lives. We've started with 3 milestones, and we've definitely seen an impact with the client satisfaction, with them being updated. Your contents are being packed up tomorrow. Your contents are now safe at storage. We've begun processing your contents. So we're gonna look to add some additional milestones as we continue to build out this technology. But we're definitely seeing some positive signs at the moment. That just having these multiple touch points with the client throughout the process is saving us a huge amount of headaches. We're seeing less escalations, less complaints, and overall a smoother contents handling procedure throughout the claim. So what's the new standard in contents? Yes, the operational work is very important. You know, the pack out, the documentation, the storing the contents properly, the processing of the contents. But I feel the communication is becoming probably just as important. That communication with the restoration companies, with the carriers, and then the policy or the homeowner themselves. We're trying to reduce uncertainty for everyone involved in the claim. But to do that, we have to make sure that we remain visible and transparent in providing communication and updates the whole way through the process. Not just when you meet the client for the initial walkthrough assessment, or you're trying to get that certificate of completion signed off at the end of the claim. We have to make sure like we're consistent and we have multiple touch points throughout the process. You're probably going to hear a lot of discussions around AI and taking people's jobs. I don't view it that way. I feel we can use AI and technology to reduce some of the administrative overhead that we're dealing with in the business. And I think it provides an opportunity for us to further create additional levels of communication in reassuring homeowners, coordinating with partners, and solving problems. I think we should be embracing technology as a tool and not any type of job replacement in our industry. So what's the future of contents look like? I think the future of contents, those who will be successful in the future of contents will really come down to those that have their operational um, procedures in place, but can then also understand the dynamic relationship between creating confidence from the client from the beginning of the claim and handling people's, trusted belongings. Well, guys, I flew through that. That's all I had on my end. Yeah, open to some questions.
Thanks, Brad. That was great. I'll be honest, I really like the way that you frame technology. So I think it's an important thing where we remember that it's a tool, but the way you said it, where it helps us enable those relationships, the relationships are really the core of it. So I think that was great. We've got some questions that have come kind of from several people, and so I'll kind of just ask away. And I'll be honest, I might have some questions as well since we have a bit of extra time. But we have a question from um, Jesse Kinzel who asked, what are some practical steps for maybe a small mold restoration company to start their own content cleaning division? But I'd also just wonder in general, what a small restoration company can do to just get started, because I feel like it can be quite daunting.
Yeah, interesting. So, it was mold restoration, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I don't think there's too many barriers to entry, Cash, in terms of getting into the contents portion. I think fundamentally it comes down to having your procedures and your operational procedures locked in. Um, we do a huge amount of 3,500 claims a year here at Action Contents, and the backbone of that is the operations. Making sure our standard operating procedures are locked in tight. Um, and a lot of that will comes down to the training and the onboarding of new staff members. So I guess to answer the question, I would start with building out some processes in terms of what you're looking to achieve. Um, how you handle contents, how you pack boxes, how you pack trucks. Once you have a solid foundation, I'd look to hire some staff, and yeah, just make sure your onboarding and your training is comprehensive, so everybody knows all elements. And then yeah, get going. Start handling some contents claims.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. Best place to start is to get started. I think
Yep.
we've got a couple other questions. This one's a bit similar in theme, I would say, but Alex Pierce asked, how do you get a restoration company that's never taken content seriously to actually give a dang? Let's just say he didn't say dang, but I think the sentiment is very clear. I think contents is very valuable and it has a big impact, but how do you kind of present that or kind of show that value?
Yeah, we fight that battle all the time, right? Where the restoration companies don't feel like the content is a valuable part of the claim, right? Um, I I think it's probably the most valuable part of the claim. The homeowner isn't going to sit there in 3 months' time and look at their drywall and comment on how what a great job the restoration company has done in fixing their drywall, or the painting looks fantastic today, right? But they're going to sit there and go, "Wow, do you remember the contents team that handled my antiques? Well, they did a great job in putting those back. Well, they really handled those with care." I think to have contents taken seriously, if the contents portion of the claim goes well, I think the claim goes well in total. Um, and then it can be profitable. If you're dialed in with your contents, it is a profitable revenue stream. I can vouch for that. You know, if they're not looking at their customer satisfaction point of view, and repeat claims and business through carriers, through fantastic contents handling, there is some profit margins to be made there as well. So I guess that's two counter arguments, Cash, on that one.
Yeah, but I think it's great perspective. I'll never forget when I was speaking to someone that specialized in contents, where they said that a homeowner won't remember the state of their drywall, but they will ask for their grandchildren's crayon drawings that were on the fridge. And so it's the emotional angle of it that I think is really missed. But it's the thing that when someone's going through kind of a crisis, that's the thing that they anchor on. So it's definitely important. One of the things that I really liked in what you shared was kind of the communication piece, and we've got some questions about that. We have one from Sarah Julian who asked, "What type of communication can I stay mindful of once contents are clean and in storage, awaiting repairs to be completed? The space between the two can be a couple months." So. Curious about your thoughts there.
Yeah, so I we had a similar thought. So what we've done is one of our milestone updates. It's an infographic that's sent out through the Encircle platform. Thanks, guys, for putting that together. Um, but essentially, it's a picture of our warehouse facility, our contents, our warehouse manager overseeing all the storage crates, and it just reads, "Your contents are safe with us. We're looking after them. We're looking forward to getting these back to you." Uh, it may seem somewhat a redundant message, but it really reduces anxiety and stress. We also have some touch points there where they can reach out to the project manager if they have any questions. We also have the address and the location of where the contents are being stored. So um, the early feedback we've got with that has all been fantastic. That it was really nice to hear, in between that time period where the contents have been processed and we're waiting for the repairs to complete, to get a touch point message across saying, "Hey, like, we're still thinking of you. We got you, and yeah, we're looking forward to getting your life back together."
I think that's really important because the timeline for this can be very long before they kind of get their stuff back for storage. I'm personally a bit curious. Could you tell us a bit more about kind of that proactivity angle when it comes to the communication? And I personally like hearing just any anecdotes from homeowners or things like that from recently where the proactivity kind of helped them out.
Yeah. So, terms of the proactivity, I think the milestones really helped with that. Um, you know, we're working on the front lines every day, and we make the assumptions that like things are moving in the right direction, right? So from the homeowner's standpoint, they've seen my team once or twice, and now pretty much everything that they own is off with some strangers in some warehouse somewhere, right? So you can imagine the anxiety associated with that, right? So we've scheduled the milestone touch points to be proactive in terms of a couple days before the pack out. Um, 2 or 3 days after the pack out. We're trying to anticipate prior to the client feeling like they need to reach out. once the clients reached out and asked about their contents, you kind of lost the competitive advantage at that point, right? So it is subjective depending on who the client is and what their circumstances are, but we've tried to kind of time those milestone updates around the optimum time before we feel the client will reach out with questions about their contents.
That's a good way to
If that
put it.
answers that question, Cash.
Well, we've got follow-up questions from folks. I think you're touching a very valuable topic. So Josie Rivera was actually curious, similar theme, but once contents are stored, how often would you follow up to see when a pack back should take place, or even just how do you know when the right time is, would you say?
Um, to see when a pack back should take place, from our end, we will wait from instruction from our restoration partners, considering when the claim is completed. Um, we'd only probably follow up once. It really depends on how long the claim is. You know, we have claims sit in here for a couple of years. Um, the milestone updates we haven't got to that point where we've worked out what the optimum frequency is on updates for claims sitting with us for 12 plus months. But if we look at a 30-day claim, we'd look to have a touch point probably every 10 days. So
That
that'd
makes
be
sense.
three touch points for the claim.
Oh, that's a good reference point. We have a question as well from Michael Bryce, and he's wondering, just in general, how large are your teams, and if you could speak to just your general contents processing and how it's structured.
Yeah, so our teams, we're up in Vancouver, Canada. We get a lot of rain up here, but our teams fluctuate during the seasons. Obviously, the summers we're dealing with a lot of fires. The winters we're dealing with a lot of flooding or um, temperature changes. So at our peak, we're probably got around 65 staff. And the teams, interesting enough, we're seeing larger, more complex contents claims coming through where we can put, 7 or 8 techs onto one job, where it'll be a 6 or 7 bedroom house, and they'll have to split the areas. Um, but yeah, our normal team makeup is a 3 to 4 person team, and an average job will pack out will be 2 to 3 days.
That makes sense. We've got a lot more questions coming, Brad, so I hope I hope you're ready. Uh,
Sure,
so
let's go.
we have a question from Christina Smith, and she was wondering, they've had jobs in which their corporation wants it done in 2 days, but in this example, it's a three-level home with three people. It's a lot of stuff. And I think the framing of the question is really, how do you manage expectations with how fast things want to be done versus how fast things will actually end up taking?
Yeah, that's a good point. The expectation management really comes down to the relationships you have with your carriers, your adjusters, your restoration project managers. We're definitely taken on projects where the expectations have been unrealistic. Um, but realistically, at the end of the day, you have to align that yes, we can do this fast. We can rush this job. We can have this packed out in 48 hours, but we can't guarantee the quality, and we can't guarantee that things aren't going to be broken or damaged or misplaced. And really, that's what it comes down to is contents is less about speed and more about the care that you're taking with people's personal belongings. And I think once you start to establish those long-term relationships with your adjusters and your carriers, they start to understand that a little bit more. That there's far less headaches on the back end. There's far less escalations. You know, one small damaged item can ruin a six-figure claim because of the sentimental and emotional value associated with that item that's been packed out. So slow things down and be thorough. Um, but managing those expectations, yeah, it's a tough conversation. But I think building that trust with your partners goes a long way into them trusting that you're going to do a great job, and like, hey, let's not rush this as much, right?
I think it goes back to the theme of communication that you shared, where it's communication with the homeowner, it's communication with your partners as well, and just making sure that everybody understands the work that you're doing, the value it brings, but also the risks and challenges that you're trying to overcome while trying to help somebody who's in need. So I think that's very valuable. We have another question from Josie Rivera. Just in general, are there any tips on how to better organize the contents manipulation process with fire mitigation contents? Any tips on organizing non-salvageable versus salvageable? So just general contents tips.
Yeah, we like to go in with a game plan. We If we don't have access to the site right away, we depending on the scope and the severity of the fire claim, um, we do ask the insured to take some photos just so we if we don't have the docu-sketch or the walkthrough document from the restoration company at this point, the team will then sit down and put together a detailed game plan. So which rooms will be attacked first, which techs will be assigned to which rooms, and then we'll start to itemize before we actually get in there, of potential items to be put onto a salvage or a non-restorable list. Um, we just find this really speeds up the process with the teams and the techs getting on site. If you plan and go in with a potential um, salvage and non-salvageable list before you pack out the contents, there's less time spent on site inspecting the items, and the team can work more thoroughly. So having a game plan going in, splitting the teams up, and breaking it down into components, either levels or rooms, has been effective on our end in dealing with large loss fire claims.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Brad. That was a lot of questions and a lot of valuable knowledge shared. I think we are coming to the end of our time, so I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to share everything that you shared. Do you have any kind of last pieces of advice or anything else that you'd like to kind of end off with before we move on?
No, I think the communication's super important. Again, Cash. I know I'm repeating this, but
You're
if you
communicating
can,
it, Brad. It's good.
yeah, exactly. If you can maintain a high level of communication throughout the claim, even if the claim doesn't go well and there's some problems, you can fix those really quickly. There doesn't need to be an escalation. There doesn't need to be additional parties involved, and you can do a lot to maintain your reputable relationships and reputation as a company.
That's great, Brad. Thank you so much, and thank you again for taking the time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Cheers.
Awesome. And so while we're transitioning to our next speaker, I'll just pause and take a second. We've got another quick poll that could help us out with and just share some information. We'd love to hear from you. Awesome. Well, without further ado, and getting to the next session, we have Asan Khan. Asan is the president and CEO of My Contents, a leading contents restoration company, recognized for bringing structure, strategy, and operational discipline to one of the most overlooked segments in the restoration industry. Asan has built My Contents into a specialized contents firm trusted on complex residential, commercial, multifamily, and large loss projects. With a background in commercial banking, risk management, and insurance, he brings a rare combination of financial insight, claims understanding, and field-tested operational experience. And I can say from personal experience as well, he's got a passion that is helping the industry elevate the standard for contents restoration through better documentation, stronger process, technical accuracy, and client-first approach. Asan is going to be talking today about the balance between old school wisdom and technology and what happens when you lean too far in either direction. So over to you, Asan.
Thanks for that introduction, Cash. I really appreciate it. I'm humbled. So, guys, I want to talk to you guys about balancing craft and technology. I thought this was a perfect idea because our industry is currently living in two different worlds. On one side, we have people who can touch a dresser, smell a cushion, smell smoke in a cushion, inspect back of the panel, and tell you exactly what happened. On the other side, we have AI, QR codes, digital inventories, dashboards, and enough photos to crash somebody's cloud account. The truth is, guys, we need both. Here at My Contents, we say craft is in our hands, technology is our tool, and then care is in our hearts. Because we're not a moving company. We are handling someone's life when their normal life has been flipped upside down. The big idea. So the big idea for the whole session is a strong contents operation requires judgment and proof. The judgment is coming from the technicians. The proof is coming from the process and the documentation. I agree, technology can make us faster, clearer, and more defensible. I like to tell my team to put anything and everything in Encircle and on documentation that we would then submit in a trial if we ever had to go to court for anything, right? So make sure that you're taking proper documentation, proper notes, just all the labor logs, everything is logged correctly. Because whenever we bill for it, we want to make sure, one, we're billing correctly, and two, that everything is documented as such. But we can't teach someone to care. It cannot fix bad training, right? So technology cannot teach someone to care, and it can't fix bad training. And it definitely cannot stop someone from putting a bowling ball on top of a box marked grandma's china. So if you kind of get the idea that what we're trying to say is, look, you have to have the general knowledge of what you're doing paired with the correct technology, processes, and procedures. And that's what kind of makes and puts everything together for a good product that you're selling, putting out there. A bad process completed on an iPad is still a bad process. The best operators know when to trust the tool, when to question it, and when to put the screen down and use your eyes, hands, and the experience. So in regards to the craft and the operating system, right? The craft is knowing how water, soot, smoke, heat, odor, and cleaning methods affected the different materials that you're dealing with. The operating system is what makes sure the knowledge shows up consistently across the crews, every project, and every file. Technicians perform the salvageability assessment first, then the software captures a decision. That order really matters, guys. So the theme of this is going to be, we need to make sure that we're documenting correctly, and then we're using the technology correctly to support what we're documenting. An app should not do the thinking for an untrained technician. The technicians should be trained to inspect, decide, and document. And again, guys, old school knowledge is not a bad word. So don't get me wrong when I say this. It means understanding the difference between a solid wood piece of furniture or something with particle board MDF. It allows you to kind of identify quickly what's leather and what is vinyl. It lets you determine, hey, this is a $20 panel of curtains from Target, or this is a $5,000 custom curtain set. It means looking at backs, looking at the bottoms, looking at the seams, looking inside the drawers, looking at the padding. A dresser can look beautiful from the front, but the back is swollen, like it had too much queso. As you grow, the company cannot live inside one employee's head. So we cannot just focus on one person with all the knowledge. We need to make sure the knowledge is spread throughout the entire team, because eventually that person can take vacation, that person gets sick, that person is stuck on another project or a meeting. You cannot allow your business to bottleneck. That's why you need the craft, but you also need the system. Technology changes the game when it captures the information while the work is being done live. Captured exactly when it's happening, not 3 weeks from now when someone in the office asks, "Hey man, where did this toaster come from?" Or who does this China belong to, right? So it allows the office staff, your project managers, operations managers, whoever's in charge of the flow of the work, to do real live check-ins on what is being captured in the field. So if there is a problem or there is an issue, they can address it at the end of the day, so that way the next 3 days can be taken care of correctly, as opposed to going back when we're doing QC a week or two later after the project's done. Then there's a lot of backtracking, a lot of redoing things. Digital inventory helps us capture descriptions, quantities, the rooms, the conditions, and the real-time dispositions. Purposeful photos is what we found. Purposeful photos shows what we found, what's pre-existing, what can be cleaned, what is cleaned, where it's stored, as well as, hey, when it was returned, we're capturing to make sure that, hey, we're showing that the pack back was done, where everything was put back, not only for the homeowner, but also for, to defend our invoices. QR codes, tags, digital locations, reduce movement errors. We recently, through Encircle, started using the QR codes, and I will tell you the efficiency of our processes and how we monitor and track the boxes and the items that we're bringing back to our facility. It has streamlined everything, and it's gotten so much better. And all this matters because the person who packed the item may not be the person that does the pack back. So you want to make sure that everything is captured correctly to ensure that, when we do take everything back, that it's taken back in the correct manner, place where it needs to go, and handled with care. With the technology, it truly creates continuity across the field, right? So then it allows different folks from different parts of the process to know exactly what's going on from start to finish. And technology also gives leadership's visibility, so we can catch the problems today instead of explaining them 6 months from now. And with a tool like Encircle, and I talk about Encircle all the time, we've used this since day one, and we'll continue using this for a very long time, unless Cash leaves. No, I'm just kidding. And with tools like Encircle, continue to improve around locations, QR codes, dispositions, workflows. There's a lot of potential here. And if you have deep technical questions, Cash, I volunteer you to answer those questions because you're a rock star. In regards to documentation redundancy, I can't say this enough. So document. I tell my team, you may get in trouble if you don't take enough photos, but you'll never get in trouble if you take too many photos, right? But the important part is also to take the photos of the affected piece, right? You don't want to take 50 photos of a dresser, but then you fail to capture the back of the dresser where the damage was, where it's absorbing water and it's expanding, right? So at My Contents, we believe that documentation redundancy is one of the most important factors in what we do. It doesn't mean you're taking 700 pictures of the same piece of furniture. It means you're capturing it in a manner which you can get the pre-existing damage captured and how the content was affected during loss. It also means independent records that support one another. Inventory tells us what the item was. Photos show us the conditions, and then labor logs will show us who did the work. Whether we're billing time and material on a large commercial loss or a large loss, labor logs are important, so they know when we got there, when we stopped working, to ensure that we're billing correctly. Daily notes explain what happened. So our standard rule within our company in regards to daily notes is if anything deviates from our standard procedures, you are required as a supervisor to document it. If a homeowner asks you all of a sudden, hey, I need these to stay, we'll take a photo of it in our notes and say, hey, homeowner asks us that these items are staying, even though those items should leave with us during the pack out process. Location records, where the property went, right? So again, it goes back to the notes. Hey, did we content manipulate this to a different part of the house, or did we actually take it to our facility? So that way the adjuster knows to pay us appropriately for the movement of the contents. I'll give you a real life example of the importance of document redundancy, right? One of the things that we do here at My Contents is we take beginning of day photos and end of day photos every single day. So if we're on a job site for 5 days, we will, when we get there, we start taking detailed beginning of day photos, and then we take, detailed end of day photos. So we had a situation where it was a high-end residence. There was a ceramic rooster that was placed on a kitchen island on a pack. We took photos at 6:30 in the evening when we left as our end of day walkthrough photos. And then when we got back the next morning, we took another round of beginning of day photos. Well, in between that time, somebody killed the rooster. And luckily, we were able to pull out our beginning of day and end of day photos and show the client, hey, look, when we left, it was here. When we got back, it was already broken. Ultimately, another contractor took the responsibility, and it saved us $1,000 for that ceramic rooster, and also probably saved us the most ridiculous argument of the month. So again, it goes without saying, photos are boring. Documentation can be boring until it saves your butt. So please, please, please document, document, document. There's been a lot of comments that have come and questions that have come about, hey, how do I pack this out really quickly and this and that? Or do I really need to capture photos if I open a box with 50 books in it? Yes, because if you ultimately return 49 books, and where's that 50th book? Or if there are 50 books and the homeowner tells you, no, there were 51 books and it's a first edition signed, what are you going to do then? So you want to make sure you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your company, and ultimately the bottom line. And all that is protected by the fact that your people have good processes in place, so that way you don't miss any. So let's move on to how to reduce the homeowner's burden, right? After a major event happens, homeowners are often asked to make too many decisions too quickly. And, if you're chasing fires, which we don't do here at My Contents, and if you do, great. They're burdened with a lot. And, they just had a loss, and now they're being rushed to make a lot of decisions. You have to understand that they're displaced. Their kids are upset. Their pets may be somewhere else. They're dealing with insurance, temporary housing, contractors, work. They still have a job, right? Kids still have to go to school. And then someone hands them a clipboard and says, hey, can you identify all your total loss inventory? What was in this room? What about all the non-recoverables, everything that's charred? Think about it. Put yourself in their shoes. That's not realistic. The contents company, when we arrive, we should come with a process. We should be able to document, categorize, flag issues during the actual removal process. So I will speak for a minute or so about our process here on My Contents. We do things a bit differently. So when we walk into a fire loss, our goal is to leave the home empty for the mitigation contractor to come and start the mitigation process. So as we remove every single piece of content, we're determining salvageability. Can it be cleaned? Can it be restored? Is it total loss? Does it make economic sense for us to even do any of that, right? And the idea behind that is you're going through every single piece of contents in your house. And you may be assessing 8,000 to 10,000 items, and of that, you may come up with a list of about 5,000 to 6,000 items that are deemed unsalvageable. And I'm talking about that half-burned toothbrush that we're replacing. So detail matters, guys, especially in a situation where the homeowner is put in a situation where they have no control. That's where we step in and we take care of them. And furthermore, you do want to lean on the homeowner when their personal knowledge matters, right? Especially with sentimental items, anything family history, any immediate needs, special handling. So you want to make sure you document all that. You have a fire loss, they need clothes, right? You want to go rush clothes that they may need for next week or so. You want to make sure you document what you're taking. So that way, when you bill for emergency services for laundering clothes, you can support what you're billing and say, hey, look, we had 20 shirts, 50 hats, whatever the homeowner needs, just support what you're doing. That is the most important thing. And that's the tool that Encircle gives you that is so invaluable. And with technology, it should reduce the homeowner's burden. Our customers have already lost control of their environment. Our job is to give them confidence that shows that someone competent has control of the process. There's too many folks, and hopefully, my goal is to help elevate the contents portion of the restoration process. And we ultimately end up being the stepchild of the process, right? Brad had mentioned earlier too, this is the most important piece of the restoration process. Homeowners, yeah, they do care about the color of the wall, the floors, whatnot, but it's ultimately the content, their personal property that makes a house a home. So guys, we are doing what I believe is the most important part of the entire restoration process. We got to take it seriously. Oftentimes contractors get excited. Oh, I'm going to make $20,000, $30,000 on this, but the processes are terrible. They end up losing a lot of money because they haven't documented correctly. They take something back, it's not clean correctly. So if you're thinking about doing it, do it, but make sure you're doing it the right way. All right, let's move on to the next one. The two traps to avoid. So I'm kind of playing to both sides. Some of the new guys like us and my contents that we're technology forward, but we understand the need to rely on the old heads. Annissa Coy wasn't able to join us today in this webinar, but we are a product of Firehouse Education. So Annissa Coy and Kevin Coy, they were crucial in our growth. And what I mean by that is if you guys are really trying to learn, there are a few folks, and I'll volunteer myself as well. Ask us questions. We've already figured it out. There's no point in trying to figure this out on your own. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And, when we bring in new folks, we tell them, look, contents restoration is not a standalone industry. We are literally borrowing from so many different industries because that's how many different things are in someone's house. And a lot of the answers are already out there. We just have to be able to go source the answers and take care of the homeowners that are affected. So back to the slide. The first type of people are the tech first crew, right? This is a crew where everything looks beautiful on screen, but the work behind it is weak. A polished report can still have terrible descriptions, terrible dispositions, not have the knowledge of actually knowing how to handle the contents and know the history behind how to handle the contents. 1,000 photos can still miss the one damaged corner that matters, right? So if you have someone taking photos of dresser and they take a nice overview photo, but then they fail to capture where the true damage was, or even the pre-existing damage, right? Because we're not in the business to rebuy stuff for homeowners either, right? So if we do proper documentation and know what to look for, that's crucial. A check mark proves somebody touched the screen, not that the work was completely done, right? So we got to make sure that substance behind the documentation and photographs. The other thing is AI can misread items, quantities, materials, conditions. They can say, hey, look, this photo contains 10 dinner plates when there are actually 8, and 2 are cracked, and 1 is actually a saucer. So the key thing is not only to just take a general photo of the items and rely on AI. Well, AI can't see through the plates to determine, hey, this one has a hairline crack, and this one is chipped on the side. So it's still important for you to take the proper documentation and know where to look and what to take. On the flip side, we deal with this as well. Sometimes a restoration contractor that's been doing this for 50 years and you tell them about how you're doing what you're doing and the detail, like, no, I just need you to get it out of here. It's like, hey, this is someone that says, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years. And that's awesome. And I agree that experience matters, but it does not explain the specific loss. It doesn't document it, right? So there's nothing that's supporting what you're doing. So when you have a piece of pen and paper without any photos or anything like that, you're setting yourself up to fail. Okay, so it is very important that you do the work correctly in all different aspects. Experience definitely does deserve respect, but the file must also stand on its own, meaning you have to be able to support every single thing you're doing. Just because you've been doing it for 20 years doesn't just validate an adjuster to write you a check for the work you did. You have to support it. The screen is a tool and experience is not a documentation system, right? So they both have to merge and mesh together. All right, we move on to the next one. All right, AI. AI. It is a good thing for sure, but it can also be detriment to your operation. And I'll elaborate on that, right? So AI is incredibly useful when it's used correctly. So emphasis on use correctly. It can help identify items. It can suggest categories, improve spelling, help with vocabulary, and speed up the reporting preparation. So those are all the good things, right? But it is essentially helpful for a good field employee who may not know the exact word for an item. They can be great with their hands, great with the customer, and still need help describing a random kitchen gadget that nobody's used since 1997. Okay, I'll give you a good example. We have bilingual employees, and sometimes The cool thing about Encircle is if your phone is set in Spanish, the entire app is in Spanish. But for our reporting, stuff needs to be in English. So with AI, it can spell things correctly. It can help identify things that they may or may not know how to translate to certain, English word. So it's definitely helpful. But the training still needs to be there for them to do the disposition correctly. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that AI does not have physical sense. It cannot feel instability on a table or a chair. It can't smell odor. It can't tell if the padding is wet, right? It can't test whether an appliance or electronics is working or not. It can definitely document it, but if your tech doesn't know that, hey, I need to test this, or hey, I need to document while I test it, then AI is useless. Technology is useless, right? AI, the thing that I caution you with the most is AI can be confidently wrong, which is the most dangerous kind of wrong. So what we've done here at My Contents is our policy simple. We say allow AI to get you 80 to 90%, but you still need human verification for any project records, restoration ability decisions, or anything that's sensitive or is disputed. Okay? AI's output should be used as a draft, not as a fact. So let AI do its thing, but always go back in and confirm it. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure and loss situations. Okay, and My Contents, and I say this, and it's kind of funny when I was putting this together. AI. So at My Contents, we're not training app users. We don't have new hires come in and say, here's Encircle, here's some videos, call Cash if you need something. No, we have to train them. We're training contents professionals how to do their job first, and then we show them how to use the app. This distinction is critical. You have to start with a purpose. We're not warehouse, we're not packing stuff in a warehouse. We're not, we're dealing with personal property when it is such a disruptive event for the client. So you have to know exactly what you're doing before you step into a loss, and then you open up Encircle, because Encircle's documenting everything for you, keeping a track of everything for you. But you still have to be able to have the human who's trained to be able to make the decisions and do the correct assessments. Initially we start off with teaching the loss environment, categories of water loss, smoke, soot, odor, contamination, PPE usage, and safety. And then we'll teach them the materials on how to pack, how to wrap, how to pad correctly, how to weight distribute on a box truck or on a vault when you're putting stuff up, how to label correctly, how to handle the content safely. Once the employee understands the physical process, that's when we layer the technology, because you have to understand the substance behind what you're doing. And then that allows them to know how to inspect it, photograph, describe, assign the rooms, record the conditions, and connect it to a warehouse location. Some employees are great with their hands, but nervous when they have an iPad in their hands. Others can learn the software in 15 minutes, but are going to pack a lamp upside down. So it has to go hand in hand. Our job is built on both sides. We can't do one without the other. And guys, the other important thing is the reliance on an app or reliance on AI. It does not take away from your management duties or your supervisory duties. Supervision doesn't disappear because we have technology. Supervisors still have to review the photos, descriptions, room assignments, quantities, locations, as well as dispositions. A dashboard does not manage operations. A manager does. All right, the field framework. So here's a simple framework that I want everyone to take home. Okay, let's focus on observing, evaluating, deciding, documenting, and verifying. You got to observe the items in the environment, evaluate the materials, exposure, safety, and personal significance, sentimental items, and then decide whether to pack it out, whether to clean it, whether to restore it, deem it total loss, dispose of it, leave it in place. And then guys, the one most important factor is know when to refer it out. And if they have certain things that need to be taken care of and your employees and your management team lack the ability to do something, sub it out. It is better for you and it's better for the client on the back end. Give you a prime example. If you don't know how to do a built-in sub-zero fridge, don't. Bring in someone that does, and you'll thank me later. Because it's one thing if you're damaged a standard fridge, maybe $1,000 to $3,000 replacement. Sub-zero fridges, you're running a $20,000 to $30,000 check, and there goes your profitability for the entire project. So know when to refer work out. Documentation, you got to document the condition of the rooms, items, put in the notes, put in locations, and then the most important thing at the end is to verify both the physical and digital work. As we know, from when we started 5 years ago today, Contents has elevated and it continues to change. There's so much better training out there. There's new folks like ourselves that are being introduced in the market that have a completely different perspective on contents. There's better software, there's better AI, there's better mobile documentation and automation. All that will continue to improve. But the key thing to take away here is that the fundamentals are not becoming less important. If anything, they're becoming even more important because technology is making the process go much quicker. So we have to make sure that we're doing good work from the beginning. So the baseline has to be there. Otherwise the bad decisions are going to spread faster. And the companies that lead, like us, companies that lead with the digital documentation, the next generation will have skilled technicians, material knowledge, customer empathy, AI guardrails, which are going to be very important, and quality control and leadership accountability. So that has to be all kind of put in together with your processes. So my final thought I want to leave you guys with is technology makes good operators faster, craft makes them incredible, and leadership knows how to combine them both. So that's what I got.
Hassan, I shouldn't be surprised. That was very eloquent and wonderfully put.
Thank you.
And thank you again for the kind words. I do appreciate it. I'll be honest, looking at your presentation, it strikes me the stuff you said about process and people. I really think that a smooth operation comes from when you have good people and having those good people work with great process. And so I think you really hit the nail on the head for sure. We have a couple questions that came in. We do want to make sure that we have a bit of time for some of these questions at the very least. From Karina Emery, she was wondering, do you have one person on site that exclusively does the photo and Encircle software inventory at all times, or how do you kind of partition that on site?
So like I said earlier, we do things a bit differently. So every single person that comes into my Contents as an employee is trained to do everything. And so the reason behind that is we want to be able to make sure that we're fluid in what we do, and it allows them to know everything from start to finish, right? We are working on some siloing of duties, but essentially, where we see the bottleneck with some of our competitors and other folks in the market is they send one person to the project, and the one person is then standing there documenting everything, and then you have packers, and then you have movers that show up 2 days later to take everything. No, we send 4 or 5 guys into the field to the project. All 4 or 5 of those guys are inventorying, assessing, and then they have support staff that will pack and move stuff. But those guys are the ones that are doing it with one person as a supervisor, and then the content techs are trained to be able to assess everything, disposition everything, and then go.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's probably the best way to scale, really, is just have everybody contributing. I'm personally curious, from an AI perspective, how has the AI feature set helped you achieve that democratization or kind of split of that work in the site, do you think?
A couple of different ways. So if it's just a simple pack and go, the description of the item is not as important as the documentation of the item, because we want to capture pre-existing damage, right? So it's when it compounds and how much time is spent and we're doing 1,000 items, yes, even if you're saving 30 seconds an item because you're not writing a description, there's a lot of saving right there. But on the flip side, when it comes to total loss items, you just take a photo of something and it can capture the entire brand, size, all that stuff. And now you're creating AI generated descriptions for total loss inventory lists. Like that has helped us out significantly for sure. But again, go back to what I said. Trust what AI is doing, but always confirm and verify. You and I have talked at
Yes.
length about that too.
We've definitely talked about it. I think there's an important thing to be said about you've got very talented people with technical expertise. You want to have the tools facilitate their work, but you want to leave room for their discretion because no matter what you do, AI cannot replace an expert's discretion. So I think
Yeah.
that's very valuable. We have a question from Philip Jones, similar vein, I would say, but they're wondering how you leverage QR codes or kind of how you use it in the field. Do you have a printer at the job site, or what's your workflow when it comes to QR codes?
So Cash can attest to this. We're actually we were anti QR codes for the longest time, and then Cash Encircle is now doing QR codes, so we took it upon ourselves, and actually it's helped us significantly. Instead of using the in the field QR codes, we print them in advance. So we'll print enough that because we'll know how much materials, how many items, how many boxes we're going to pack. We'll have a general knowledge of it before we go onto a job site. So we will pre-print QR codes, and then we will then also prepare some just blank QR codes in case there's any type of overage and stuff. But essentially, we're documenting it on site. We take a photo of the QR code, attach a box to it, and then we put the items and then just go from there. It has actually made our processes so much better over the last month that we've implemented the QR process. And
That's
I
good
can't
to
wait for
know.
the locations.
Oh
QR
yeah,
process.
more stuff is coming for sure. I think it's interesting because there's this quote that you always use where if you ask people when they rode carriages what they wanted, they'd always say a faster horse because it's hard to imagine a car.
Yeah.
And so when folks are using Sharpies a lot, I think the technology piece it requires a bit of creativity, and I think that's something I've seen in the way that you implement processes is that there's a spark of creativity that comes with the technology that you need to apply to sorry, have things really stick. So I think that's very valuable. We want to end off just with one last question from Mark Yannick, and I think it's a good question to end off, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. They said we have a lot of old school guys on our crew, great at the work, super knowledgeable, but they either can't or won't use newer technology that could make work faster. How do I convince them to use it, and how can I help them get comfortable with it?
Man, that's a tough one. Adoption of technology with the old school guys is definitely more difficult, right? Um, I don't know. I would probably I don't know. I think what I would do is I would take a look at some of their work and see, hey, where have we had mistakes and issues? Where have we had loss? Where have we come back and seen items missing or items not put back in the correct spot? Or we didn't capture pre-existing damage and now we have to go buy a new dresser. Or the TV was never tested and there was no video of the TV being tested. Now we have to buy them a TV. I think if you, because one thing I found is with management, we can just, we see a lot and from a different perspective. So we can give them, we tell them, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. But if we pair that up with an example, a real life example of something that they dealt with, or someone in the team dealt with, then they can correlate a bit better. Be like, okay, there is a reason why we are implementing this, the reason why we're trying to do this. So that's kind of a key thing, and it's very very important to kind of highlight, show them exact examples, so that way they can relate. We can relate because we see it from top down, but they may not see it. So you have to kind of put it into vision or, share with them, hey, these projects that you've done, we've had X amount of losses. These are projects that we've done with the new, process or technology implemented, and there's no issues, you know?
I think that's very well said. Honestly, the way you framed it is perfect because it's often almost like a translation type of problem where you want to translate the value so that it's very clear in the way that really kind of resonates. And once you show them the value, people will come to a solution on their own. But it's kind of making sure that you're speaking in a way that's kind of representative
And then
that
the
you
other thing
understand,
also
right?
is, if they're not wanting to adopt and take a new policy and procedures, redirect them into a different part of the job. Like, hey, I can't have you doing the total loss inventory, or I can't have you doing the assessment anymore because you're not using the software. So all I'm going to have you do is move the boxes from the house into the truck, and you can put them into the vaults when you get back. And then let them do that for a week or two, and maybe that readjusts their, uh, on
Yeah,
perspective, and maybe they want to do it then.
definitely. Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time, Hassan. Any last kind of words or pieces of advice you'd like to share at the end here, or?
The only thing I'll say is yes, there is a lot of money to be made in contents restoration, but it is crucial that you guys do it the right way. I've seen a handful of companies in Dallas Fort Worth. That's the market that we're in, go under because they get excited about, oh, I can charge $30,000-$40,000 on contents where I'm only charging 10,000 on mitigation, and they go throw in a storage unit. I've had a situation where the storage unit was on someone's credit card, got canceled because he lost it at the bar, and then 4 months later, when they went to go pack out, that they were missing a unit, and then they got sued for $20,000 because they were missing a lot of crucial contents. And so, yes, contents are amazing. You can make a lot of money doing contents as long as you get the proper training and do it the right way. And the goal is to elevate this segment of the restoration process. So reach out to mentors, reach out to peers, reach out to me. I would rather help you figure it out and do it the right way instead of making mistakes and making the rest of us look bad.
Very well said, Hassan. Thank you again for
Appreciate it.
taking the time. Appreciate having you
Thank you
here.
for the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So while we're getting ready for our next speaker, just want to share another poll just to give some of your thoughts in between. Give you a second to fill that in. While you're filling that out, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Up next, we have Demetrius Lampkin, Contents Manager for Allied Restoration out of California. Demetrius knows what busy is. Managing multiple crews in high-stakes, high-price tag jobs such as the Palisades fires let him use his experience to shape a high-performing and scaling contents division. If you've ever wondered what strong department margins look like in practice, or how to keep a multi-crew operation moving without everything falling apart, Demetrius is going to give you an honest look at that. So I'll hand it off to you. Thank you, Demetrius.
Thank you so much. Let me go ahead and get started. I've been in the industry for since 2018. I worked with multiple contents companies to give you a little bit of a background. Um, and I would say some of those were very old school in mentality and thinking. Some were doing total loss with recording still in the 2000s, 2020s. So here we do things a lot differently than where I've come from, but we also run very strong. So let me get into the um, first slide here. So right now we run about anywhere between 4 to 6 jobs a day. We only have seven technicians, seven technicians and two coordinators. So with that, everyone's pretty much trained to handle multiple facets of the job. Currently, we have jobs that we are doing content manipulation on for pack out for attorneys, cleaning jobs, total loss inventories for high net worth clients. Two cleaning jobs usually going every single day from the Palisades. Um, and then there's a lot of moving parts that we have to fill with those cleaning crews. So we operate two warehouses to facilitate the cleaning crews on a daily basis. So we have one at our main office, and then we acquired another one recently that we just opened. I would say about 4 months ago. That was probably one of my main projects here to get going. With all of that going on with 5 to 6 jobs a day. We were also doing the transition of storages to the new facility for cleaning. So a typical day looks like we'll have one crew maybe in Malibu, maybe another one in Palisades. We might have another one all the way down in San Clemente, as well as two cleaning crews going at both warehouse locations, as well as another crew maybe in like Irvine, Santa Ana area any given day if you're familiar with SoCal. Um, so one of the things that we do so we don't have any type of bottleneck occur is we have a series of processes. So at 7 a.m. is our first contents call. So at 7 a.m., Everyone talks about their daily six. So what's the most important item of their day? So every crew that's going out, they're gonna say what job they're going to, what they're gonna accomplish for the day, and that's done at 7 o'clock. Another thing we do as a office overall, especially if you're involved in production, we have a 7:30 call that does the same thing, that goes over with the managers what they have going on, anyone that's in reconstruction, mitigation. We're a full service vendor. So we have that call at 7:30, which is very strategic, to basically put the accountability on the person for what they're going to do for the rest of the day. A part of that, the next update I'm going to get from the crew is about middays, about say their lunch or right after lunch, about noon. I'll get another update from all the other crews, all the crews that are on the field. Where are they at? What are they doing? Are they going to be able to accomplish or finish their job for the day? Is there any hiccups, materials, or order they need? Um, so we stay in touch throughout the day. That's the second touch with the team. That's pretty vital. And then we do another one, which usually requires me to stay behind. I start my day as early as 5:30, and then in my day about 3 or 4 when the last crews get in. Sometimes I might stay till 5 o'clock. I usually greet them when they come in, see how the job went, see how they're feeling. I do a lot of touch points to make sure that they have what they need. They understand the process, and then I give them timelines. So each day that they're on a job, if we have an expectation of it's a 4-day job, then they're going to have a countdown that they're understanding that here's what we're expecting, um, what we need to do and accomplish for the next week or for the next day. Um, this point is not to be about me being everywhere, but it's about me being able to build the structure for them to have what they need, understand the processes. A lot of information is given to our techs and our leads about where we're going, what direction we need to drive the ship in, as well as the execution plan for the quarter. So they're well aware of what the plan is for the in total quarter, as well as the month. So that way they understand how we're driving the car or the ship in that system. Um, I'm going to move on to the next part of the system before you scale. In this part of it, before you can scale a contents division, you need three things in place: tracking, chain of custody, and documentation. Here we are very about our systems. I probably run about four active spreadsheets a day, as well as constantly monitoring Encircle to make sure that the photos are getting uploaded promptly, making sure that there's photos in Albi because we use Albi as well, just to make sure that everything is transferring over and connecting. But we use a KPI um, that keeps track of work in progress, pending jobs, storage vault locations, because we do have two warehouses. We even track in that same database, we do track our damaged items to make sure that we can account for what items were broken on a job, if they were broken, how they were broken. So that way, when we do our daily update to our client, usually if we pack out today, we'll send them an email first thing in the morning with all of the information, the update, what happened for the day. If there was any damage to the property or anything that was broken, they're already aware. So that way we can trigger the next step of that process to say, hey, we're either going to, try to fix it if it's something that's fixable. If it was completely broken and it was damaged beyond repair, hey, what is this item worth? So we can keep that in mind. So that way, as we're going on through this process, they know that they're going to be taken care of throughout that. So we also have another database that we track our overall revenue for the department. We just recently rolled it out. So basically, it has every contents job that is actively in our system, whether it's in storage, whether it is being packed out. We even put our anticipated pack back dates because we do reach out to our reconstruction team to have those in the system. And then what we do is we go ahead and calendar potential pack back schedules based on that information. So that way we're always kind of ready to go, ready to talk with the client, let them know, hey, we anticipate this pack out or pack back date. So that way they understand kind of where we're coming from as far as scheduling, right? We want to make sure that we give them more than enough time and notice, especially if they're Palisades fire job. They've been out their house for months, so we want them to let them know that there is light at the end of the tunnel for them. The next thing is, chain of custody for us comes down to something simple. Being in a box truck that leaves a warehouse. I want a photo of it loaded up. I want proof of who touched it. We even do something that's very old school. We use as well as using the QR codes um, for chain of custody before when we pack it out, especially if we're doing contents cleaning on it. We do index cards because I want to know what individual packed it. Because yes, we may have 6 or 7 employees working for us at all times. We do use a lot of temp labor. So with that, we have quite a regular amount of teams. So we probably on any given day run about 2, 4, 6. So anywhere between 8 temp employees to 12 temp employees that have worked with us in the past doing active packouts. There's some that are with us every single day. So they're more of a fixture here. But we do that so that way we can track who touched that box, when the box was touched, and then we'll know who transported it, who was the driver, because again we want to track all the metrics of if something gets broken, how did it break, why did it break. Um, so we keep that as a staple for us. And then we want to make sure that all of the documentation is up to date. So, like again, we are a preferred vendor with some of the insurance companies. Sedgwick uses a lot when there is a file that's in litigation or it's a complex claim because we're used to those items happening. Um, so they might bring us out to reevaluate someone else's work. They might want us to come out and redocument because they know our documentation is strong. The chain of custody, we want to make sure that everything's proper, so that way they're not liable for any additional damages that may have occurred by someone else or by another vendor. Um, Without tracking a chain of custody, you can't grow into being a thriving business that we do. We right now currently run about any given month with the amount of people we have, 300,000 on a bad month up to 500,000 on a good month with 7 employees out in the field. So that'll kind of give you some kind of numbers of kind of what we're running. We don't rush our packouts. That's one thing we do not do. We do take our time, so we do have to fight our bills a little bit more, but we want to make sure the quality is there that we are delivering for. With that, let's move on to training. That is a huge part of what we do here. So we do a weekly training, whether it's safety, whether it's learning how to rewrap large items, box items. We reevaluate based on our incident numbers. If we have more broken glass, we then revisit it with how to pack it properly. Are we not supplying you guys with the right materials to make sure that we are not breaking items? Uh, we we reevaluate our transport method, right? We want to make sure that we even train our guys in driving the truck safely. So I will go on the field some days and ride along with whoever's driving, make sure they're not doing abrupt stops, hard turns, really making sure that whether it's the transportation issue that's being an issue, whether it's the packing, the loading, the inventory, um, we have that training done weekly for them, even if it's on site or in the field training sometimes. Um, and then with that, we make sure that everyone is cross trained with all of the information from if we're doing a total loss inventory, are we doing a total loss disposal? Are we doing content cleaning? Um, this week alone, I pulled in one of my cleaning guys, and it's an attorney facing a job site because they know how to multitask and handle things professionally, right? So in this job, we were strictly there just to move the boxes. Some very basic, move it, help coordinate for inventory. We also had a hygienist that needed to pull samples. Um, with with everything going on, they had to handle that. But we also found out that the storage unit that we were working out of had rodent problems, did rodent in one of them, and then all of the fun stuff that becomes behind it. So again, we had to suit up, and then we handled setting up a protocol for them to safely work in that unit. So with that, one of the guys understands the protocols for all of the lead cleanups we do. We work in a lot of containment, so they understand how to get through that. But with that being said, um, we just make sure that we focus on training weekly, so that way they can understand what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, if anyone needs to be retrained. Because again, you might be on one type of job for a while. You might be doing content cleaning for too long, and you forgot how to pack out boxes, or you forgot how to wrap certain items because you haven't encountered them out in the field or working in those conditions. We have one employee in particular. She knows how to do everything, but she prefers to be in the warehouse and content cleaning because it's a very controlled environment for her versus being on a job site where it might be overwhelming for some. So again, we try to accommodate based on training needs and per, personal assumptions or wants based on their skill sets. Um, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Staying steady in a high stakes job. A lot of the jobs that we are working on in the Palisades, they range anywhere from a $3 million house to currently we are working in a $22 million house. The contents are valued right now at something worth probably 10 to 20 million just in personal contents. There is one share retailer I can think of that is worth 200,000. It's crazy. It doesn't look like much, but it is definitely a high value piece of contents. So with that, there's a lot of protocols that we have to take. This house is so special that they have video cameras in every single room that we are working in, as well as they have a house manager that is watching a iPad at all times. So we can't even have anyone that is unescorted in the house. Um, Moving about freely because we want to make sure that the chain of custody is there and making sure that there is no potential for any liability for them to come back and say something's missing or we damaged an item. This house is so custom; they have leather on the actual handrail. So if you can tell, this person is probably net worth is probably 150 million to 250 million. So they are very particular on who's in their house and how this job is handled. Um, so again, with that, we want to make sure that we build the trust with the client. We walk it. Those jobs that need that particular hand holding, we go out there as a manager. I probably get on set probably a couple times a week to make sure that there is no chance for any kind of damage. Um, what we end up doing with especially these high-end homeowners, they some require a special amount of attention and hand holding. So our leads are very well prepared as far as knowing their job, but also how to handle these high net worth clients. Because we set the tone when we go out there, especially for these fire losses, we set the tone for the rest of the claim. So when our reconstruction comes out to do the cleaning, some of these have actual physical fire damage. We set the tone where they already have a great expectation of how we handle the claim, the communication because of the daily updates, the constant communication with the homeowners. I do personal check-ins with them. Our team does check-ins with them. So we set that standard very clear up front. So that way, when our other piece of the company comes in, they are ready. They understand because of the great work of our team. We've been able to get a lot of word of mouth referrals in the Palisades because it's a very tight knit community. So we've been able to get the neighbor's neighbor, because of someone they know, someone they went to church with, someone they grew up with. Um, so with that, we want to stay steady in communication, steady on our workflow, steady on the expectations that we're setting and how the job is being completed. Um, I mean, we have guys that have come from Serve Pro that understand that the way we do things here at Ally. is very different than where you're going to come from a Serve Pro or a different company because we set high expectations, a high bar with our training, our knowledge, um, with the expertise we bring. Um, Ally was founded to be more of a high net worth restoration company, which is a little bit different because we do a lot of work in Beverly Hills, Orange County, the Palisades, Altadena. So we deal with a lot of A-list actors as far as sports entertainment attorneys, you name it, we work with them. So we want to make sure that we bring that consistent communication, consistent workflow um, to each job where they understand that they get a rundown of what the process is, how we do it, the reason why we are so thorough on our inventory, thorough through the pack out process, why we take a little bit longer on their jobs than initially sometimes anticipated, but we set that expectation up front. With that being said, I'm going to move on to our margins. Um, because of what we do and how we do it, we do have content should be running at a 70% to 70% margin on these jobs. Currently, right now, we're running at 66. My goal is to be closer to 70 to 73 by the end of the year. Just over the last 2 quarters, we're with working in the Palisades in our fire jobs and some water. Right now, we're roughly about 80 to 85% fire jobs and about that 10 to 15% of water. With the Palisades drying up, we are now switching our focus to turn and burn jobs back into water. Um, our company is aggressively um, getting back into water more now that the Palisades is kind of slowing down for us. So that's going to be quicker, faster turnover jobs. So we're not going to see these high, huge job numbers that we've been seeing with 200,000 per project to some of them are 350,000 per project. Um, but the last 2 quarters we did 2.1 million. Um, and for us, what brings that margin down to that 66% would be our storage units because we do not have enough storage space to facilitate all of the large packouts from the Palisades. We have roughly 155 volts on both facilities. Those are being 100% utilized, as well as multiple storage units that we have throughout the local area near our office. Then we use a lot of some equipment rentals, materials, stuff like that. Our temp labor is another huge facet of why we are not hitting our 7% margin, but it's very factored in as job cost when we think about the job up front. And then lastly, but not least, is the overtime for those far jobs. For us, we average an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to the Palisades, and then a minimum 2 hours to get back every day from those jobs. So again, that's going to change and run into our margins. We track our overtime, so our goal is to be about 30 to 35 hours per week. On our bad weeks, we run about 60 to 70, depending on the volume of job that we have going on, where they're at, and making sure that they're getting an adequate amount of time to work on the job site. That's where we're running into that overtime crunch. Um, to support our growth, we migrated to a second facility, which I told you guys about earlier. We built a clean room. We had to run the plumbing, some containment to make a clean room. And then we had to go out and buy brand new storage vaults that fit our facility to be able to stack 3 high. We are anticipating probably opening another facility for Contents or two here in the next 3 to 6 months. Um, so if I could leave you with 3 things, systems and tracking are key to keep you focused and protect your margins. The right people with the right training will do more with less. And the industry is shifting. We're moving from a fire and smoke heavy water to heavy water focus for us. That means running a skeleton crew through more volume of jobs. So as we do that, the people that we have on our ground level, the 7 techs we have now, um, we will jump into getting more volume, but also at the same time, these people will be training and running the next crews as we bring on new employees, right? So I think we can now go to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Demetrius. That was a lot of information. It was really, really
Sorry.
valuable. I really liked the focus on process and training. You know, they say practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. And if you are training and repeating the things, but being mindful of what you're training on, then you're going to have a good system to lean on and scale from. So I really love that focus. We have a handful of questions. We're going to see if we have time to answer maybe two or three, if that works for you. So we'll just jump right into them. Mark Kurichak asks, if you were to build a new profitable contents division tomorrow, what are the most important systems do you say would be valuable to build in the first three-ish months?
Um, I would say for us, I mean, I live off our KPI. So knowing what you have in the pending pipeline, knowing what's in WIP, focus on tracking your storage, where things are at. With that storage, if you are using storage units, make sure you have a universal card that does not get shut off. That you can make sure that it's being tracked by someone is huge. And then just having the right systems in place like Encircle, because with the AI features that we've utilized, it has actually effectively helped train, or not train, take away some of our slower inventories, and especially with the total loss. So I would say KPI, your tracking databases, making sure that you are documentation first, because that is going to help you keep track of your jobs, but also when you're dealing with these adjusters, the more documentation you have, the less likelihood of something being missed, or the less likelihood of them um, coming back to like, oh, well, it should have taken this long, but then you have the photos, the documentation, you can track. Sometimes you might have a homeowner that needs some, very important documents, right? So you want to even know what vault that is in or what storage unit that is.
Definitely. Makes a lot of sense. We have two more questions, more related around the fire side of things. Josie Rivera was wondering, what's your protocol when it comes to fire contents? And for example, depending on the severity, do you assign multiple people to do salvage versus non-salvageable, or kind of what's your process there?
Well, when we are approaching our fire losses, we start with the salvageable contents first. So we want to sort through and get out all of the salvageable and clean items based on the test results, the hygienist results, because again, we with Palisades we've dealt with a lot of lead, heavy metals, combustible byproducts, and some asbestos, and some of these losses. So we go with cleanable first. So anything that's salvageable. Then the next step is to come out and do the total loss inventory. Everything that is porous, non-salvageable. And then once we get the approval from the adjuster and they've been able to come to an agreement, then we come out and do the total loss disposal. And then that the salvageables are already in our warehouse and they're in queue for cleaning. And then once the job site is ready, then we'll go ahead and put it back in storage. After we put it in storage for a while, and then we'll go back and put it on the backpack list and put it back in the home.
Makes a lot of sense. And to finish things off, we have one question from Mike Smith, and he was wondering more on the storage side, any advice on what to do with non-impacted items from fire or smoke, like stored appliances, washer, steam dryer, etc. The example they gave is they have some items that were in 13-month storage that were originally tested and operational, but now after kind of the storage period, they now seem to be not operational or not working properly. Any advice for that type of circumstance or damage?
So when it comes to appliances, the best thing to do is total loss them up front. We've learned that with electronics, there's no guarantee that they're going to survive for any type of amount of time once they've been sustained to that smoke and soot damage. So it's always on the better end to total loss those right up front, once you get into those shops, because you can't guarantee they're going to be usable 6, 7, 8 weeks down the line, even months. You never know. So usually those are what we total loss up front, versus keeping them and trying to say it. We even fight the adjusters sometimes because they're like, oh, it's salvageable. No, it's not. At the end of the day, we get an expert out to determine that it's not worth it, not even worth the storage.
That's true. Never thought of that really. That's good to know. So thank you so much for taking the time. Demetrius, are there any last thoughts or advice you'd like to share with folks before we transition off?
We'll just say if you are building a new division, documentation and your key points of your factors of building the right databases, because a lot of ours are custom to Allied, but finding what works to help you track your day to day and focus on training. Those are the top things, and making sure you have systems in place when things do go wrong, because they are eventually going to go wrong on a job site. And
Awesome.
it's how you're doing those. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Demetrius, for taking the time and sharing this information for us. People seem to really, really like it in the chat, so appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. So one last poll, I promise. So please feel free to share some of the information, and I'll introduce our next speaker. So next we have Lynn Royle, project manager and estimator for Woodhouse Restoration. Lynn has over 30 years of experience in the restoration industry. She's worked for several well-known restoration companies throughout her career. Most recently, First General Waterloo, where she was a senior project manager, sorry. Her experience includes project management, contents operations, staff training, and she brings an in-depth understanding of the many moving parts involved in restoration work. Lynn enjoys the variety of the industry and the fact that no 2 days are quite the same. Outside of work, Lynn loves spending time with her three wonderful kids and an adorable dog named Ricky. We'll be talking with Lynn about the speed versus care problem and how the answer isn't always to choose one. It's to build a crew where care is just how they work, while also remembering why we do what we do in contents. This session, we'll be doing something a little bit different, a bit of a different format. We've got some questions ready for Lynn, and we're going to do it in a bit of an interview style. So, Lynn, it's very lovely to have you and to chat with you as always, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I think we'll just jump right into it. Our first question, we're looking into trying to understand where does the pressure to move fast usually come from, and what do you think happens when a crew kind of feels the pressure to give in to that?
Really good question. Normally, what happens is there's a rush on the end from the insurance company because they want to close their files in a timely fashion and move on to the next one. And the other could be on the project management side because, again, we're very busy, a lot of moving parts. So it's really important to have that communication between your team, the insurance company, and the insured as well, to set reasonable expectations for not only the insured, the vendor, but also for the team.
That makes a lot of sense. I think there's a recurring theme in a lot of these conversations today where it's communication, communication, communication. It's really
So important.
understanding your team and then making sure that you can communicate clearly the impacts because you want to do it fast, but you want to do it right, you know?
Right.
So I think that's
They're
the
precious
balance.
Items.
It is. It really is. And I think
Mhm.
you make one mistake with something that has sentimental value, no amount of money is going to really replace it. So I think that's the key.
Exactly. You
I
can't put
think
price on sentimental.
true. I gave an anecdote that I swear I think earlier I swear that I think you gave me where when you're thinking about the value of a homeowner's items, it's the things that are really sentimental, like a grandchild's drawing on a fridge or something that's handmade that you can't replace. Do you have any kind of anecdotes regarding that or things to share there?
So basically, when I prepare my team or our team to go to site and we do a walkthrough, I always start a conversation with the homeowner to say anything valuable or personable that you don't want us handling. This is the perfect time to remove it or to allow us to assist you to remove it. Things like the hand-drawn pictures from their grandkids or their children, the formed handprints, money, jewelry, passports, that sort of thing, because those are important items to them and we can't replace those. The meaning that they have behind it, it's so important.
That's really, really valuable to add is to have that conversation because sometimes I'm sure there are items that don't seem like they might have sentimental value that,
Right.
at first glance, but you talk to them and this
Some
is a
people have
belt.
magnets on their fridge. Magnets on their
Yes.
fridge that from traveling all over the world or their grandkids picked up at Disney World for them. So those are important items.
Yeah, and I've heard even, a belt that was given by their grandfather or something like that that might go with all the other belts, but you can't tell them
Right.
apart. So I think that's important. And so leading into our next question, uh, in terms of this kind of knowledge or having these conversations, how do you train a new tech to handle the pack out the right way, especially before they're thrown into maybe their first busy job?
So basically, with contents and the content team, it is literally hands-on training. Walking them through the process, why we do what we do, ensuring that they have all the right documentation, all the right information, the right packing materials, why we use it, why we do what we do, why we pack out things the way we do, why we protect them, why we photograph them, document them, do quantity, that sort of thing. And it changes per job. So teaching them on one small job and then taking them to a large fire pack out, again, the process is it changes every single job. But if you give them the basics, then they can learn from that. And also using the Encircle app just makes it so much easier for us now to do contents.
That makes a
It's
lot of
it's
sense.
wonderful with the QR codes, the dispositions, that sort of thing, and teaching them how to know what disposition and why we're using it is very important. But it
Could you tell
changes
us,
every day.
definitely, could you tell us a bit more about the why piece? Because I think that's very valuable. If you're teaching someone process for process sake, sometimes it's hard for them to anchor. But for contents, especially if you don't know the why, there are real world consequences to missing certain things, right?
Well, yeah, you don't know what you don't know. So if Paul does this way and Jane does it that way, you want to make sure that as a team, you're all following the same procedures. And again, like I said, you can go from doing a very small pack out in a bedroom to going to doing a full fire pack out. So if you have all of the aces in your place, it'll work out a lot easier for the whole team. It'll show the homeowner the care, how it is stressful when we walk in. We're the last people that they want to see because they've had some incident happen in their home, or that's why we're there. So we want to make it as stress-free and as we want to show that we care. It's really important that they understand that there's that communication, we're using all the right materials and the reasons why.
It adds a lot of reassurance when the team comes
Mhm,
in and they know what they're doing and they know the impact that the work that they do
mhm.
has, for sure. So
Absolutely.
it's very well
Absolutely.
put, Lynn.
Thank you.
The next question we have is just kind of looking for an example. I mean, really, could you walk us through a time the clock was working against you, and how did you hold the line when it came to kind of the reliability and those consistent, valuable processes that you use?
Well, again, it goes to communication from the initial introduction of yourself to the homeowner, bridging the gap with the insurance company so that both parties have a clear understanding of why we're doing what we do, how long we think or anticipate that it can take, bringing in our team, doing another introduction, and just, again, doing the daily check-ins, the documentation, showing the care, and setting those expectations right out of the gate. That just helps straight across the board. Letting the homeowner know that there are no stupid questions, only stupid answers. And if we don't have it, we'll find it for them. Keeping the line of communication with the insurance company open on a daily basis is really important. Letting them know that there's going to be a schedule of loss, what a schedule of loss is, how it's handled, how it's compiled. A copy will go to them, a copy will go to the insurance company, and how they bridge that gap to deal with it, to resolve it.
I think you put that very, very well in that for the homeowner, this is probably their first time going through the process, whereas everyone
Mhm.
else has typically gone through it multiple times. And
Right.
so bridging that gap is definitely super valuable.
Again, it's one of those things though, Cash. We are the last people that they want to see in their home. Whether it's
Exactly.
been a sewer backup or a small flood. Some people can live in their home while we're doing our work, and others are displaced. So that's the not knowing. Every day that there's people in their home, what are they doing? And again, it's very important to remind your team with this day and age, with the technology, people have pet cameras, they've got rings. So to be mindful and respectful, because we have to treat it as if it's our home and our things, because everybody has the Mona Lisa. So, they're all going to come back and say, well, wait, I had this, but with the Encircle program and the proper documentation and training, that way, we can bridge that gap.
Truly, I think they're in a very vulnerable position, and so respect is even more valuable than you typically go out and give when you're doing the contents work.
Exactly.
Our next question is on if something does end up going wrong on a pack out, and I'm sure with the volume of pack outs you do, not everything can be perfect. How do you really work on addressing that with a crew without turning it into a blame conversation, would you say?
Well, just probably the simplest example would be you have a team member that's given the task that they have to pack out a china cabinet or a hutch. When accidents happen, somebody moves and an elbow knocks something and it crashes to the floor. That's an accident. It can happen any day. We can do it in our own homes. It's not a matter of blaming somebody. It's about accountability, and whoever the team lead is there to be notified. You know what? Let's document it. Let's clean up the mess. Let's bag it. We don't throw it out. We set it aside. If the homeowner's there, well, they're going to hear it, or we have to bring it to their attention. But again, document it, communicate it to the insurance company as well. And liability just falls on the company, not just one individual. There's no I in team. We have to work together. And it happens all the time. Again, going to brag about Encircle, being able to document things for pre-loss condition to see if there's any cracks in a vase or scratches on a table, or legs are swollen from a previous loss that they never claimed. It's important that we do that, but it's not a matter of blaming a individual. It's working together as a team. It can happen to anybody, and unfortunately it happens quite frequently because we're only human. So as long as we communicate it to the homeowner and within the team, unless it's something that's, astronomical and, we knock over the whole china cabinet. Never seen that happen, thank goodness. But, we have to be accountable for it.
It's a big trust factor. You can't say
Absolutely.
there won't be mistakes, but if there's
they're
trust,
trusting
sorry,
us
Lynn,
with their belongings, right? They're trusting us with their things that they have spent years collecting, or buying new furniture, or those painstaking hours of putting together their IKEA furniture. We know how that goes. And again, they don't want us in their home. We're the last people that they want to see, but they're extremely happy when we're gone.
Yeah, truly. I think it's you want to do your job right, and then leave.
And do it well the first time. It's very important that you do it well the first time. Again, we're only human, mistakes do happen, but as long as everybody has each other's back, and again, communication with the homeowners and keeping the vendors updated, they're getting better at bridging that gap of understanding why we do what we do. It's the same as when you're writing the estimate for contents. I know fellow speakers have talked about that. We've taken a lot of time over the years to develop a great system for estimating why we're charging for boxes in and boxes out, shrink wrap, labels, the QR codes, wires, tags, fragile stickers. And when the homeowners see all of the care that we put into, using consumable sheets, document of all of our supplies, then we can justify and quantify why we're charging the insurance company for it. Because you can make dealing with contents is the hardest part in this industry. People don't understand. You can clean up a bathroom toilet, break and do the flooring, but if it's gone all down into a basement of all collectibles, that's huge.
And so it's very different every time.
Every time. Like I said, everybody has a Mona Lisa and everybody has collectibles or, sentimental things, and you can't put a price on that.
Definitely. We've got one last question here, and then I think we're going to transition into some of the submitted questions, actually. What would you say is the one habit that you wish every contents crew would just get right?
Consistently documentation, just to make sure that everybody documents things and runs their jobs the same. I'm talking about the same team. If you have somebody start out on that job as a lead, I feel that it's best for them to stay until that job is finished because they have a clear understanding of the expectations from the meeting with the homeowner and the project manager on that job. And it just shows consistency for the homeowner so they have that relationship. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it anchors them in a very vulnerable part of their life.
Mhm.
And they know
Yeah.
that, there's people
Oh,
around them that maybe they don't want them to be there, but they know what they're doing. And even if you don't speak too much with them, if they show confidence, they'll feel confident that someone is dealing
well,
with their stuff to respect.
exactly. If you have the homeowners, again, whether they're living in the home or they're displaced from the home, if it's the same people, they start to form a relationship with them. They feel very comfortable. It decompresses them, takes this a little more of the edge and the stress and the sting out of it for them. That they kind of form that relationship. So they start to call them by name, and it's like, hey, Jane, or hey, Joe, well, and will I talk to them today and whatever. And they just have that comfort that they know that there's somebody there that is working for them.
Yeah, it's the unspoken part of it, really, that I'd say some people call it the customer service part of it, but it's really the relationship building part of
It
it
is.
that I
It
think
is.
gets lost a
I think
lot,
it's
but it's
over
so
and above
valuable.
customer service. Absolutely. It's building relationships because if you have a bad taste in your mouth from me coming into your home and there's something that I've done, you're going to go and tell your neighbors or you're going to tell your insurance company. But if you build that relationship and that team, has that positive attitude, and it's not the easiest job. Everybody knows that there's a lot of lifting and it's a lot of responsibility. But if you have that strong leadership and that strong team with the confidence and the skills and the materials and the communication, it builds that trust with the homeowner that yes, they are going to tell their friends, and then they're going to, if somebody that they know in their family, oh hey, you should call so and so because they did a great job. That speaks volumes right there.
Really, truly. We
Mhm.
have time for a couple submitted questions I'd like to ask. We have one from Ariel Townsend. She was wondering, what are some examples of good questions you would like your techs to be asking before they go out and kind of do their jobs?
Asking of the project manager. Sorry, is
The
that
I think the question was a
basically?
bit it didn't really specify, so please interpret in the way that you think is best. Maybe the project manager, maybe some examples of the questions that they asked the
So
homeowner, whatever things make most sense.
Well, I think it's really important that prior to sending out any team members to a job site is to review the photos in Encircle, have a verbal little walkthrough, ensure that the work order is clearly outlining the expectations from, where to start, where to stage your materials, what materials to bring, ensuring that you have consumable sheets, setting the expectation for time. You have one room to start. Okay, you've got 3 bedrooms upstairs. How many people do you need per room? And I think if you review that and then go to site and do a walkthrough, pick an area where you're going to stage all your materials, set up your tables to help with, saving on lifting more than you have to, and do a walkthrough with your team lead, and just say, okay, we could put one person in this room, one person in this room, one person in this room, and then the lead is able to concentrate on their documentation using the Encircle app, and then checking, kind of micromanaging, yes, and then have that person being able to report back to the PM because the PMs can't always be on site. Hope that
That makes
helps.
sense. That makes sense. We
Yeah.
also have another question from Holly Brannigan. She was wondering, for a tech new to contents, coming
Mhm.
from a construction background, where should they start their training and what skills should they focus on developing first?
So again, like I said before, I find that it's very hands-on training, going to a job site, doing a walkthrough, asking the questions, um, putting together a training manual is something that I have, and I have done that in the past, and that's what I would give to my team. Um, as simple as how to build a proper box, where the labels go, the importance of the information on it. Again, how to pack dishes. what we do after we bring those materials back to the warehouse, staging them, whether it's going into Fireline or if it's going to be hand cleaned, or what we do with electronics. And again, it's based job per job.
Makes sense. We have another question as well from Betty Mackinder. How do you effectively list damaged contents and create a scope? And how do you teach your techs to do this too?
So again, that's with the Encircle app. It's basically called the schedule of loss. So it's anything that is non-restorable. If you've had a fire and there was a lack of power, so that would be the food in the fridge and the freezers, any opened food items. So basically with the Encircle app, you can go in there and do your normal listing, but the disposition would get changed to non-restorable or dispose. Once that schedule of loss is completed, so you're done your entire pack out, then we can populate the schedule of loss. A copy will go to the homeowner and a copy will go to the insurance company, and you'll deal directly with them on fair market replacement cost value of those items. Kind of a standard that I set in the past for my team. I love the dollar store. Most people like the dollar store. Anything $10 and under, it's really hard to quantify and justify to the insurance company why we're cleaning and processing that. Because when you think of our pack out materials, our vehicles, the labor, wages, that sort of thing in time, does it quantify us to do that? But again, because a lot of people love it, if there are certain items that they want us to keep, then yes, absolutely we do. And then if we do have a process of having to process and clean things back at our warehouse, some things may not respond to the cleaning. So then a post schedule of loss is then compiled and sent off to the insurance company. And again, they deal directly with them on fair market replacement cost value.
Awesome. We have one last question, I think, just to finish things off, and I think it's a fairly straightforward, but I'd say open-ended as well. Ben McDonald was wondering, do you have any tips on making logging items faster? I think you touched on a bit of it, but
well, that would be the use actually of Encircle and making sure that the team has a full understanding of it. The AI program is fantastic. All you have to do is the dispositions and then the quantities, overview pictures. Gonna brag, here at Woodhouse, we have a really strong content team. So it's kind of hard for me to answer that because, having working with them, they have a plan. They have full understanding of the expectations, but yes, using Encircle has been great. It's very helpful.
I think the way you put it, where if they can lean on a consistent process, then they don't really need
Correct.
to spend a lot of time thinking. It's not necessarily doing it quicker or faster, it's doing it
No.
right, so you don't have to redo it.
And efficiently the first time. We're not circling back like we used to when everything had to be handwritten and duplicate, and you'd have a yellow copy, a blue copy, a pink copy, and a green copy, and the papers would get shuffled and would get lost. We have so many resources now, and the training with the team here is incredible. And like I said, they have a clear expectation of what's expected. The one lead going around, checking with the team, ensuring that things are being done in an orderly and a timely fashion, and the updates that the PMs get is perfect.
Lynn, thank you so much for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
answer all these questions that I
Yay.
had, folks had. I think they definitely learned a lot. Are there any final pieces of advice or anything that you wanted to kind of just quickly chat about that you didn't get a chance to, or just want to make sure you had time?
I think it's really important to keep reviewing contents every day and promoting them with every claim, keeping the adjusters informed, because contents change on a daily basis, and engaging your content team for their opinion, and just to say, hey, here's my thought, but however, their suggestion may make it easier too. So, working together is just a really positive thing when it comes to contents. And, doing things like this more and more, it makes more people understand. Again, hate to repeat myself, why we do what we do.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
having you, and thank you for taking the time to share all that expertise and information.
Thank you. It was nice seeing you again.
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing more of each other.
All right, for sure. Thank you.
Take care. Amazing. And I think bringing us home, we have our last speaker. Uh, this is someone that definitely does not need an introduction, but Barb Jackson, consultant and instructor at Total Contents. Barb is the president of Total Contents, a nationally recognized consultant, speaker, and instructor specializing in contents restoration. With more than 35 years of industry experience, Barb has helped restore companies improve contents workflows, design efficient processing facilities, and build more profitable contents divisions. A certified restorer through the Restoration Industry Association and the 11th woman to earn the designation, she is a respected educator, speaker, and published industry expert, dedicated to helping restoration professionals build more efficient and profitable contents division. Barb's been training contents contractors for a long time, and she's really got a practical framework for this, which she calls the emotional bank account. She'll walk through what this means and why you need it when something goes wrong and how to have those hard conversations. So, Barb, thank you so much for the time. It's all yours.
Sure. Thanks, Cash. Thanks for having me today. This topic is near and dear to my heart because 30 some years ago, when I started doing pack outs, the homeowner was kind of like a side thought. It was all about the job and more about the reconstruction and less about the contents. They were just some things that were in the way. So I think now we really understand the value of considering the homeowner and what they're dealing with. So in order to avoid needing to have hard, difficult conversations with them, I think if we can build the relationship on day one and nurture it, that's really going to help us so that when there is something that comes up, that we can overcome it. It doesn't turn into an issue. So, you know, regardless of the size or the type of disaster that they're dealing with, it's an unexpected disruption in their life. Their home is their safe place. And here we are, we're coming in strangers, and maybe day one, we're invited strangers. They're happy to have us, they embrace us. But then we're there for a few weeks or a few months, and they really want to get their life back and they want us out of their property, right? So there's so many things that are going on at the beginning of the job. And with all of our team, we want to make sure that they understand this isn't just a job site. This is someone's home. It's their castle. So we need to really treat their home with respect and their contents with respect because we truly are guests. Next slide, please. So if we think about a bank account, you know, we make deposits and withdrawals. So as we get to know the insured, the homeowner, we really want to start building that bank account and making deposits. And that's by having empathy, having open and good communication. It looks like with the previous speakers, there's been a lot of discussion about establishing a relationship and good communication throughout the whole life of the job. We want to show them our professionalism and care. So something's probably bound to go wrong on a big job. So now we want to make sure that we've put money or put deposits into that emotional bank account so that they can absorb it. Next slide, please. So let's just take a quick look at our team. We have, you know, different positions and roles of all of our players. And the next slide. So let's break it down. We want to talk about managing that relationship with the insured. So usually the contents manager is going to be the first one to meet with the homeowner or their family members. And we want to ask a lot of questions. Things like what's important to you? What are some sentimental items? And we're also gathering information from what the adjuster expects and, you know, information from maybe the PM that we're working under in our own company. And then when the contents manager hands that job over to the field supervisor, they're the liaison now between the contents manager and the homeowner. Now, a lead tech, that's someone who, if the field supervisor gets pulled away and maybe they're having a one-on-one conversation with a technician and they're just not available, then the lead tech is the one who is directing things. The homeowner might come to them and ask them questions. So the important thing is that the questions always are fed back to the on-site field supervisor. If they don't really have an answer, then they're reaching out to the contents manager. Now, the technician, their role is to greet the homeowner, pet the dog, say hi to the kids, be courteous throughout the length of the job, and assist when it's appropriate. So, and that might look like something like maybe helping the insured carry something out to their car, but we never want the technician to have to answer technical questions. So in our company, I always taught that everybody is a customer service rep. Doesn't matter what position you're in, everyone can smile, look the homeowner in the eye, be friendly, be kind, because the insureds are not really going to understand like what our job looks like, what we should be doing or how we should be doing it. But I can say from experience that through a trauma, even though like you are traumatized by events, kindness still gets through to you, and that's remembered. I did a job once in Huntington Beach, California. It was close to the beach, it was high humidity, part of the roof was gone. They had a lot of artwork and antiques. And I spoke with the insured and she asked me specifically to protect this huge round wooden antique table. So it was, we couldn't get it out of the house because we couldn't get a truck in the area yet. And so we covered it and we told everybody, you're going to have to walk around this table, you know, slowly, carefully. But you know, at the end of the job, she thanked me that we took such good care of that table. So you never know what's going to be important to each insured. And that's the importance of like getting to know them and letting them approach us. We want to ask them questions and have that open communication. Next slide, please. So we want to make deposits into their emotional bank account, and there's so many different ways we can do it. Arriving on time, calling ahead if we're going to be running late, introduce ourselves and our team. And one of the things that I've always done with my crew members is not only did I have their logo on their shirt, I had their name, because it's really intimidating to have strangers in your home and you know you're talking to maybe a lead tech or a field supervisor and you get on the phone with the contents manager and say, I was just speaking to, oh, I don't know their name, they have blonde hair, blah, blah, blah. So just by having our names on our shirts can really reduce the level of stress for them. Showing empathy, you know, there's times where they might pull us aside, they're crying on our shoulder, they're talking to us, and we're like, come on, I got to get back to work, you know, but that time is precious and they remember, you know, so that can be a nice deposit. We want to explain what's going to happen next, manage their expectations. We don't want to overpromise, but if we can over deliver, that would be great. So I don't like to act like we're the miracle workers coming in. They experience the peril and we're there to mitigate it and to make things easier for them. But we can't always fix everything. There are going to be total loss items. So we want to always say, you know, we will attempt to clean. We'll do the best we can. We'll keep you informed on the progress of the item. Excuse me. And then we want to protect their house itself from further damage. So putting down floor mats at the entrance is great. One thing I make sure I do when I'm doing a walkthrough as the contents manager with the insured, I'll say, may I enter this room? May I open the door? May I open this cabinet? May I open this drawer? I'm looking to see where the soot traveled, and I just need to test. So I'm explaining things as I go, but I'm always asking permission before I open up a drawer or door cabinet. And I do it every time until they say, Barb, you don't have to keep asking. It's okay. You can open and look at whatever you need to. That permission is priceless. So we want them to feel like they're still in control. Anytime that we can give them options, we can start packing out your dining room tomorrow morning, or if you prefer, we can do the kitchen. What's your family schedule looking like? How can we help? We don't want to interrupt. Asking questions like, where's the best place to park? We don't want to get your neighbors upset, so we want to be careful, like where we position things. And you might want to let the neighbors know that we're going to be making noise. Those kind of things really help out. Remembering the family's names, their pet's name. And then I like to find out the name, what they call each room. So the room off of the living room, is it the family room? Is it the den? Is it the study? And I want to use those room names in my estimate, on my boxes, inventory, everywhere. So there's consistency and it's familiar to them. So that when the boxes come back for the pack in, it's not the yellow bedroom that now got painted blue. So we want to make it personal. Okay, next slide, please. And we want to avoid creating the deficits, those withdrawals. So that's showing up late, messing up their schedule, not calling them back, not keeping them informed. How about showing up like we're in a mood ourselves? We need to leave our problems at the door because, they're dealing with their own. We want to be careful not to turn around in the neighbors' driveways, and no smoking on the property. The next slide, please. Okay, this top photo is a real deal here. If you've heard of Lladro, Lladro, it's a collectible, and they used to sell them in jewelry stores, so they're kind of high end. This piece, if you go onto the website replacements.com, it is valued at $650. So a technician broke off Moses' finger. Moses was pointing up at the sky. So as you can see in the photograph, his pointer finger is gone. Well, they attempted to glue it back on and didn't tell anybody. They returned it to the client, and the client noticed it right away and was very irate. How dare you try to repair something without letting me know? So if you were to look on Google now, this is where I got this particular photograph of Moses without his finger, and it's now for sale for like $60. So the value just went down so far. And there's ways that we can get things repaired. So there's a proper way of handling a situation like this. The other photograph, this was actually, I was writing an estimate for a company, and this was in their photographs that they were going to send off to the carrier. So I suggested that they delete this one, but they were tossing the contents. So this was at their shop. So hopefully they're not doing this at the job site, tossing things around in the trucks. But imagine if a homeowner would see this, right? You could say, well, it's packed really well. Barb taught me how to pack. But it's like we need to always be on alert that we're always being watched. And, it can make a huge difference the way that we handle things. So also something that is inappropriate in a home is for us to be talking loud, like horseplay, laughing. These people's lives are torn upside down, and for us to come in and we're having fun, it's just inappropriate. Next slide, please. So one way that we can manage expectations, with the example of breakage, accidents happen, but if we can manage the expectation, like this is a form that I have in my job planning system, which it has dozens of forms for the job startup process. And I use the same process every time. So this is, we go over these points with the insured one by one, and they can initial as we talk to them about it, they acknowledge that, we discussed it, and then they actually sign the entire form. So we want to have the paper trail too, which is important. But this one, it says, if we are responsible for damaging an item, we reserve the right at our discretion to repair, replace, or reimburse you for the item based on fair market pricing. So I've been in the industry so long, I've seen contractors being held hostage for their check over what the homeowner claims, to be something that was broken or lost from their belongings. So if we set this expectation from day one that they don't get to tell us, an exorbitant amount of what the item was valued at. There's so many resources now to determine the true value. And there's also the option of a repair. So I did break an antique item on a pack out in Santa Barbara. It was a high-end home. I broke a piece, and I looked around, I found a repair. It was a man who worked out of his home. He was an expert, and he did a museum quality repair on the item for $100. And he said that it didn't affect the value of the item. So just knowing that there's options. And then websites like replacements.com, eBay, we can find duplicates that's going to actually be much cheaper than even us trying to repair it ourselves. Next slide, please. So this is my damage breakage form that we use internally. When we would break something, we noted how it was broken, who broke it, and how we resolved the issue. It was either repaired, replaced, or reimbursed. So this has been a great tool as well. And so this isn't a surprise to the homeowner. Like if we do break something and they think they're just going to eat cash, it's like, no, remember you signed, and when we first met with you, that this is our policy. And so then it's not so much of a disappointment, and there's parameters now for us too that protect us. Next slide, please. So I worked a job in Chatsworth, California. It was very memorable. The home had $250,000 worth of contents in it, collectibles, antiques. They had some antiquities. And so we want to view every single item. They had thousands of items, all different sizes, values, whatever. So this is one particular item, and you can research it. I love Google Lens. We can find out values of things. So we don't want to take it for granted. Oh, they got so much stuff, or we never want to use the J word, junk. These are their personal belongings that are very valuable to them. Next slide, please. So the backstory on this one, this is just one snippet view of their collections. The homeowner had been traumatized by a moving company who got called in by the adjuster to do the pack out after water damage. So the moving company was packing wet contents, and the homeowner knew, like, that doesn't seem right. So they also saw the moving company mishandling their contents. And so they stopped. They called the adjuster, said, we don't want them in our house anymore. So my client got called, and we met with the homeowner and the homeowner's contractor. The contractor wanted the pack out to be done in 2 weeks. I asked my client, how many technicians do we have to work with? He said 7. And so looking at the scope of the job, I said, there's no way we can do this in less than 3 weeks. I need 3 weeks to do it. Otherwise, I'm not going to be involved in it. So we did get, we were able to do it. We got the 3 weeks, and day one. So the homeowner is like really traumatized from this other company. Now we're strangers, a new set of strangers coming in, and we're coming in specifically to deal with all the high-end pieces. So day one, I set up my packing station. It's on a ceramic tile floor. And that little piece that was behind on the previous slide, the lady who was working with me, who I'd never met before, who her main language was Spanish, and I only know a little bit of Spanish. We were working together, and just as the homeowner came around the corner, she saw my technician hold a piece of bubble wrap against her belly, and she rolled that little piece of artwork, and she was away from the table, and the homeowner freaked out. And it's like, she like kind of scared us. We didn't see her coming, and she was so upset with what she saw. So I had to just like stop the operation. I took her aside. I apologized to her. I said, I understand why you're so nervous, and I'm sorry of everything that's happened to you. I said, you know what, we should be working over top of the table. I said, I'm going to take some time, and I'm going to give more instructions to everybody. And, like some of these pieces are kind of tricky. They're shaped odd. Could you maybe show us like how you'd like them wrapped? And so then she had antiquities. If you look in this photograph, there's a penguin cookie jar on the bottom, and behind it are 2 vases from a church in Europe that's from the 15th century. So these were antiquities, priceless. So we took those type of items to our kitchen, set them aside separately, and then I had specialized boxes made for those. So we had a good outcome. She loved us, and every other day she would provide us with lunch, and then I would take her lunch every other day. And pretty much every day we had lunch out on her patio, and we got along really well. I was only involved in the pack out, and my client, they did the storage, the cleaning, the pack back, and I touched base with everybody after the job was finished, and nothing got broken. So the homeowner and I, we stayed in touch for a couple of years after that. I would call her if I had questions about a collection or ceramics or collectible. So it turned out really well. So even though we started off on the wrong foot, we were able to rescue the situation. Next slide, please. So just remember, like every single touch point or interaction that any of our crew has with the insured is priceless. It's an opportunity. It's a moment of truth to make a good impression. And we want the insureds to be able to get on with their life. They had this disaster. They can't live in their home. They don't have access to their contents. They don't need to be hanging around at the house watching us do the pack out. They've got more important things to take care of. So if we can build their trust until that point where they say, Barb, you can look in any drawer, any cabinet that you need to, that's what's going to, let them get on with their life throughout the rest of the project that we're dealing with them. So, let's just always be looking for ways to build that trust and make those deposits. Next slide, please. So like I said, I taught my crew that every one of them was a customer service rep. We all can make a huge difference in someone's life. Those little kindnesses will shine through even on someone's worst day. It might be the only kindness they were shown that day. So, we don't want to minimize a smile, looking someone in the eye, or maybe bringing cookies to them or something. Always looking for those opportunities. Next slide, please. Okay, so I showed you my damage breakage form. I'd love to share it with you. And I also have a customer care fund that I had used with my team. And to give you just a quick overview of it, they had a daily allowance, they had an allowance, I'll say, that if something went wrong on the job, and like if they could go out at lunchtime and do something, bring something back for the insured to make it better, they were empowered to do that. They didn't have to call me as the contents manager to get an okay on it. I mean, I'd appreciate knowing what they were thinking, but being able to do something in the moment to make a difference is really important. So I'll share that with you too. So feel free to email me at barb@Total Contents, and in the subject line, just say customer care fund, and I'll send those free things to you. So thank you so much for your time. I believe we can do some question and answers now.
Thank you so much, Barb. I really appreciate you sharing all this information. I really love the focus on empathy. I remember when I took one of your trainings, I remember the main takeaway was one of those stories that you told about how you put together these kind of like to-go bags for the homeowners that had, and you wouldn't really think about it, but it's like toothpaste, toothbrushes, some like just hygienic things that you kind of take for granted when a peril has happened, but it's such a human touch, and I think that that's a thread that goes through all the things you've shared. So it's really true. I think we have a couple questions from folks. I'd love to kind of
Okay,
ask
great.
and see if we get some feedback. So we have a
Sure.
question from Keely, who was wondering, what do you do when you have a tech who is technically very great at the contents work, but just doesn't really have the people skills?
Um, we could maybe look for a webinar or some kind of training event that we could send them to. They may enjoy it. I think, putting them to work with someone who is more outgoing and someone who could point out opportunities, because some people are shy or they come from a different family background and they're just not used to that, to having to interact with people. So, those are a couple suggestions that I would recommend.
That makes sense. I think it's something you kind of work through together, and it maybe is a muscle that they end up building over time. Some people I feel like are natural at it, whereas some people they kind of work at it. But most people you're working with are good people. You just need to learn the skills around it, right? So
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. We have a question from Josie Rivera, who was wondering, in that initial inspection with the homeowner, could you walk us through what good questions there are to ask and how you manage or set those expectations?
Sure. I like to get them talking about their contents. I'll ask them, like, if I see that they have collections or that they like Disney or, like certain characters, I'll ask them about those things and just get them talking about things that they like. And then I have a form that is specifically is for them to identify items that are worth and whatever threshold you set. Can you tell me if you have anything in this room that's worth 500 or more, 1,000 or more? High-end home, it might be everything there. I'm also asking, do you have anything that everyone in the family knows that it's broken and that it's just being held together? If you could point that out to me so that I can set it aside. If you have anything of extreme value, like I might take that myself in my vehicle back to the shop and put it in a locked room. So just like one thing I'll do is I'll say, can you tell me about this piece behind me? And let them say if it's an oil painting, it's a collectible, they got it at Goodwill. You want to let them talk about their contents. And I like to say that I like to ask them while they're honest. So while they're traumatized, they're not thinking about things, but once they start talking to family members and friends and everybody's like, oh, you know what? You could get more money, blah, blah, blah. So I like to talk to them as soon as possible and kind of one-on-one.
I think that makes sense. You want them to, honesty is maybe unfiltered. You want them to
Right.
just kind
That's
of
a good way to put it. Yeah.
share. I think it's really important because memory is a very odd thing. And so sometimes people might misremember or change things up as well. I think even the way you put it, I really liked where you're framing it in a way where you're trying to ask the questions so that you can help them in the best way possible. Maybe they might say, oh, this swan was put together and perfectly fine, but you're asking those questions to see if it's kind of fragile because you don't want to break it or damage it, or you want to take that extra care. You're asking these questions for a reason, right?
Another question I ask is, do you have anything that's multiple pieces that we should know how to handle it first? So that, if we just take it with one hand, it could fall and break. So that's a good one too.
Yeah, well, that's very true. We had a question from Goblade who was wondering, do you think it's better for a person to go in first and document all the contents before the crew starts the pack out, and kind of what the process would be for that?
Not so much. Like, I feel like it's really important for the contents manager to go one-on-one, meet with the adjuster, the homeowner, walk the job, ask all these important questions of the insured, get familiar with what's on the property. And then for that information to then like have a conversation with the field supervisor who can lead the team. And I guess the reason that I prefer to have my whole team show up on day one. And when I say whole team, I'm talking maybe like 3 to 5 people. And I like everybody to arrive, but then have specific roles to play. So for example, if we have the inventory taker that's going to be creating their Encircle inventory, I like them to get started right away with furniture that has nothing in it or on it. So like in a kitchen, I would want them to inventory the kitchen chairs and leave the labels behind on the item, and always get ahead of the packers. And then at the same time, we have everybody, the rest of the crew, they're bringing the supplies in. They're setting up their staging area with all the supplies. They're making boxes. There's so much busy work that they can do while the inventory taker's getting ahead of them. And then the inventory takers, it could be 1 or 2 people working together, but the initial goal is to inventory the large pieces in the rooms that they're working in. And that lets them get ahead of everybody else, so that it might take half a day for the team to get the whole job set up. And one of my favorite phrases to share is slow it down to speed it up. If we send in 10 people all at once, it's going to be overwhelming. And that might be why they're asking, should we just send one person in to set things up? So I think it's like 2 opposite extremes. But if we can have everybody with a job, then the whole job is like progressing. Once the furniture has been labeled, now the runners can come back and start wrapping and packing those items, and the inventory label goes on the outside of the packaging material. That can be taken to a holding area or to the truck. And the idea is to clear out that room of the furniture so that you can come back in with your packing table and start packing boxes. So I have, like, we have our workshop this week here in Pittsburgh, and we just developed a whole new sheet. This is off the cuff, but if you email me, I'll send you, it's like the process, like if you have 5 people on a job site, what they're each doing. And I'll give that as a bonus today.
Thanks
So I
so
hope
much,
that helps.
Barb.
Yeah.
That really does. I think we have just one last question, and it's from Dominique, but it's a question I think we've had a couple of questions just regarding hoarder situations, and we were just wondering, what's your process on a home with kind of more of a hoarder situation? It's a very delicate situation, not only for the contents team, but emotionally for the insured. Do you have any advice or anything to share on that topic?
Yeah. I mean, each one is, you know, is so unique. Like each person is different. I'm really careful not to call them a hoarder, but I'll say it's a hoarding situation or high content job. Um, but if we can, there has to be somebody assigned to them basically to keep them, busy, keep them calm, explain like what's going on, so that maybe the rest of the crew can keep moving. If it's a severely like a like emotional person, I there's even a gal in the industry who specializes in this. Um, her first name is Melissa. She got remarried recently, so I'm not sure of her last name, but she's amazing. She is trained to deal with people with that condition. So if it's a severe enough of a situation, we might need that extra help from an outside consultant. The situations that I've worked on, it's really given that person a lot of attention and I hate to say, like, just keeping them occupied so that they're not so traumatized by everything going on around them.
I think, yeah, we said it very, very well. Just being present with them, because
Mm-hmm.
it is traumatizing. And the language you
Yeah.
use really affects the way that people see the situation and also see themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
I think very, very well put, Barb.
And I think we need to have good communication with the adjuster so that they know what's happening. So we don't want to like shock them with our invoice later, but if they
Yeah,
can understand how much time it's taking us and why, it helps.
definitely. Thank you so much, Barb, for
Oh,
sharing this information and also just taking the time to answer all these questions.
my
It really is
pleasure.
insightful. Every time I hear you speak, I always leave learning something new, and I love that. So, is there
Awesome.
any kind of last things you wanted to share or anything closing statements wise you wanted to share with folks?
No, you know, we we do have our new Contents Pro membership site. It's kind of like my legacy project. I want to be able to share as much information as possible to the industry. So if you'd like to check it out, or if you have any input, if you have questions, things that you need to know, I tell everyone in class to just text me and I'll help you out. And if I don't have the answer, I can reach out to other industry experts that will help. So there's a lot of help out here for you that wasn't here 30 years ago. So just take advantage of it. Never hesitate to reach out to us.
That's the thing. I'll always ask for help. Folks that work in contents I find are the friendliest out there. So definitely reach out for help and communicate with the community. Thank you so much, Barb. Really
Oh,
appreciate you taking the
my
time.
pleasure.
And with that's a wrap on our Encircle Contents Bootcamp. Thank you so much for taking the time and kind of listening to all this information. And I wanted to really thank our five speakers, Brad, Asan, Demetrius, Lynn, and Barb. They're the people that are out there doing the work every day, and they showed up and gave you a lot of their expertise and insight, and we appreciate it much more than we can say. To end it off here, I just wanted to summarize or boil down some of the things that we've learned today. Contents really has grown up. Expectations from carriers, homeowners, and the industry are higher than they've ever been. The craft still matters. Technology makes for good contents work, but it doesn't make bad contents work good. Trying to figure out a place for the expertise to really shine for the technology is really, really important. Systems are what scale. Building good systems in order to kind of have your teams lean on a process and do that good work reliably is really, really important. And packouts are really where trust is built or broken. Your crew is your reputation, and that standard has to be held on even on the hard days. So that's kind of a lot that we've learned, and it's really, really exciting to hear folks talk about their real experience. Well, That's it for today. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we hope you learned a lot. Thank you very much.